The most elusive tactic in digital marketing is a good strategy for inbound marketing. Why is that? Because it's a dating game. We're going to learn the steps in this courtship today on The Edge.
Go! Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. This week's featured guest is Norm Vogele, on-site content strategist at Page One Power. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Welcome back to The Edge. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Every week, we bring you amazing guests to chat about digital marketing, tactics, and trends. We unpack a key marketing topic for our digital marketing audience. So whether or not you're part of an agency, a freelancer, or part of a marketing department in a firm, this show is for you. So check out all the shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. We're proud to have Page One Power as the new sponsor for this Edge of the Web interview series segment. It's great to have a new sponsor on board, and we're eager to share what they do with our listeners. Page One Power is an SEO agency specializing in link building and strategic content creation. They create content and links that are tailored to your goals, all with a project manager who will be able to be with you through every step of your campaign. Visit edgeofthewebradio.com/Page One Power today to sign up for a 30-minute consultation. Thanks for joining the Edge team, Page One Power. Just want to let you know who will be coming up on the show here very soon. We're going to be talking to Bill Hartzer. You might want to check out some of the other shows we've done just recently. We had a special announcement from Dixon Jones from Inlinks. They've just updated their keyword strategy tool, and we wanted to showcase that a couple shows back. And check out our 500th episode as we talked about having epic fails and learning from those fails. So we had interviewed a lot of top talent individuals, and they shared their stories of what they did and how they screwed up and how they learned from it. If you're interested in being part of the show, give us a quick email over at info@edgeofthewebradio.com. That's info@edgeofthewebradio.com. Set your reminders on YouTube whenever we drop videos. You'll get notified, of course. Hey, if you like what you hear, why not give a quick review to us over at ratethispodcast.com/edge. You'll see some great places where you can give us a rating. We'd love to hear from you, and it helps the world know about our show as well as our sponsors. So that's ratethispodcast.com/edge. Lastly, make sure that you check out the news podcast that we do each and every week, covering all the recent digital marketing news as well as Google algorithm updates. We're dropping it every Tuesday to help you navigate your week in digital marketing. Continue to co-host on the news, Morty Oberstein, the head of brand SEO over at Wix. With all that said, let's pivot around and meet this week's industry expert. Norm Vogele helps organizations bridge the gap between web-based algorithms and human users by creating content that drives engagement, improves online visibility, and advances brand development. He's actually skilled in search engine optimization, SEO, content creation, including blog posts, supported link acquisition, and keyword-driven SEO strategies, as well as training and development. Norm's been actually with the sponsor of this show, Page One Power, for close to 8 years, which is actually in digital marketing years. I mean, it's almost like dog years. Page One Power is an SEO agency specializing in sustainable link building and strategic content creation. And inbound link authority has always been the most difficult part of online marketing, in my opinion. It's great to have a sponsor willing to share their technical expertise in that matter. So, Norm, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. And again, it's amazing having an employee that's actually around for 8 years, almost 8 years. How do you do that? Well, more importantly, how can you let everybody else know why it's so important to stay around an organization like Page One Power?
Well, I'm always fascinated when organizations do we have a cumulative 1,000 years of experience between all our people. I'm like, yeah, that could be 1,000 people with 1 year of experience. In SEO in particular, I think things change so frequently and sometimes so profoundly that having kind of that depth of perspective, it actually makes the job easier, in my opinion, in some ways, because you kind of know the sky can't always be falling. There's always another algorithmic update around the corner. And so having that kind of like patient perspective. I think it just allows you to be a little bit more zen about what looks like chaos if you're not used to it. And Page One Power as a company, they make it easy to stick around. They give me a lot of liberty to just figure out what we need to do, work with a lot of talented people to make it work. Mm-hmm. And we tend to have pretty good luck with clients appreciating what we do and understanding what we do, which again, in SEO is not something you can take for granted.
No, you're absolutely right. Why don't you share with me in your words, your history, how you got to Page One Power and what you've done since then?
My journey to Page One Power really had nothing to do with marketing or really the internet SEO. None of that was really in my background. And they opened up, I think we're going on like 11 or 12 years now. Mm-hmm. And it was a local company doing, internet marketing in this really specialized way. And it just kind of caught my eye and I was fascinated by the prospect of it. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of in the right place at the right time to join the team. And of course, they have to provide all their own internal training. So I kind of got my feet wet with that and just immediately doing site finding, trying to understand what it takes to engage all these different sites, all these strangers and editors and site owners, right, to convince them, hey, this is actually good for you. I think it was within my first month of doing that I started to realize, our clients come to us with whatever shingle they've hung, mm-hmm, and we're supposed to build links. That's not a really compelling ask unless they happen to have really good assets.
Right. Right.
And so really early in my career at Page One Power, I was like, I know link building is hard, but it would be a heck of a lot easier if we helped our clients develop those assets that actually facilitate a genuine ask where I go, hey, this is beneficial for your audience. This supports your website. Mm-hmm. Then it's a little bit less knocking on doors and a little bit, hey, you may not have seen this, but I think you'll enjoy it. And it just goes so much smoother when you have something of value to offer and you're not just kind of on your knees every time you start a conversation.
Right. And on top of that, if we're asking our clients to actually be adept at providing that type of shareable content, we're going to be waiting long into the night because they do their job well.
Exactly.
And expecting them to be able to create content that has necessary factors that are valuable and informational. I mean, they're not communicators, they're doers in their particular services, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're good at what they do, most of them, they're either selling a product or they're trying to monetize a service, right? So if they're good at what they do, it's just kind of like, okay, who needs what you're selling? Who's looking for the service that you're offering? Mm-hmm. And if they have a good answer for that, then it's fairly easy to come up with linkable content that speaks to a real and felt need that their potential customers or clients have.
Yep.
It's remarkable how few people do that as a matter of course, though. The vast majority of people that I see, or rather websites that I see, they kind of hang their shingle and they go, hey, I do this, I sell this, so there you have it. And it's like, no, you do actually have to make the connection to what are people going through when they start to look for what you have? Mm-hmm. What absence or what pain point do they experience in life that makes them go, oh, I need to buy something that solves that, or I need to retain a professional who can do that. And that's really kind of the essence of how we create linkable assets, is talking to the client, figuring out, what's your value proposition, what makes you good, what makes you special.
Right.
And then putting that in a context for, a diverse array of audiences to see themselves and go, oh, that is for me. That does make sense. That is valuable.
All right. So let me pause right there because I want to pivot around right before we leave your history. I got to let the listeners know that before you got into SEO, you had a very unique you're in a very unique industry, and that was baking. You actually came from an entire industry of baking. Now, there is such an analogy between SEO and the recipe that goes into SEO to baking. And on top of that, the sheer concept of the long-term play as opposed to the short-term play. Got to share with me some of the analogies that you've had over the years.
That might be the better answer to your earlier question. How do you stick around in this industry for so long? Because as a baker, you follow the recipe. Right. You follow the recipe precisely. You follow the recipe repeatedly. And even then, sometimes you still get different results. Environmental effects change, your altitude changes, the barometric pressure changes. And I mean, that's pretty much what the world of search is like, right? The web is constantly evolving. Search engines are evolving.
Right.
The rules are kind of changing, but the core principles are basically written in stone. The function of search itself, that doesn't really change. So I was kind of conditioned by working in kitchens, and especially working with yeast and dough and breads, to be patient, to follow the rules, to trust the process, and to kind of be able to adjust when I see things in the environment changing.
Oh my gosh. I just had an epiphany. Literally, part of the SEO training should literally be having SEOs go through a baking class and give them impart the discipline that they have to make sure that they're patient, right? And have that as a regular tutorial. We have to do it here at the shop. We're just going to have to.
Really, anything in food service, I think, works. You have to be patient. You have to figure out how to talk to people.
Yep.
Put things in terms they understand. Like food service and SEO, I think they run deep together, even though they on the surface look very different.
Absolutely. I could truly go down an entire path of analogies, but but let's pull back for a second and really talk about inbound. And I also want to explore the content generation side of what you guys do, because I'm heavily vested in that side of the equation for our own clients as well. But let's just talk about the value of links here for a second. And for the listeners that have not explored or maybe have just jumped into search engine optimization, and our listeners are part of a firm or freelancers, what have you, we want to ramp up everybody into a kind of a base knowledge here. The area of marketing that's the most elusive to technical SEOs, as well as digital and traditional marketers, is the inbound link earning factor. It's a major challenge, and you have to have a particular skill to do it. It's very similar to PR, public relations. Mm-hmm. It's very much digital PR. Building a trusted network inside of PR is invaluable. It's key for getting a story through TV news and media contacts. And you have to have those relationships. Bar none, whenever you're trying to pitch a story. And that's kind of the cornerstone of our discussion here today, Norm. But first, let's kind of go through the basics here. Earning links as it applies to digital marketing, SEO. There's even more cutting edge concepts of semantic relevancy whenever you're talking about topics, both on-site and off-site. Right? That's for the later chapter here. But let's talk about why links are so important to an SEO campaign. Let's just start there. Give us the 30,000-foot view of what is so important about inbound.
The classic analogy, I think, is that links are like votes of trust.
Yep.
So if you want to win in search, just like if you want to win in an election, you need the votes. You don't need all of the votes. You don't need votes from everyone, but you need enough votes to look credible, to be competitive.
And it's not a democracy either, because
No, it's not.
Because some votes are better than other votes, right?
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like the Electoral College, right? Like everybody gets a vote, but some votes are the ones that really make the difference. And I don't want to say DA is the same as the Electoral College, but relevant links, I think, are the ones that represent the Electoral College and having the power to actually elevate your visibility.
And common links. It may not even be a strong DA factor,
Precisely.
But it could very well be common links that are in the industry pointing to different competitors or authoritative bodies. You want to be able to pursue those. I mean, that is the covetous space in which you want to be known as and cited by, right?
Right. You want people acknowledging the value that you bring to the web. And when it comes to things like DA or only chasing like really authoritative domains for backlinks, I like to use the comparison with Wikipedia. Wikipedia as a domain has to be one of the most visible sites in Google's search results.
Sure.
And it's also got to be one of the most linked to websites on the web. But, a New York Times journalist probably isn't going to link to Wikipedia in an article that they write. The Library of Congress isn't linking to Wikipedia. So the average backlink profile for Wikipedia, those are low DA links.
Right. But
they speak to the purpose of each specific page, whatever's being defined, whatever historical event or word or whatever. So the context is super, super meaningful. and people rely on Wikipedia to express these kind of introductory topics. So they get a lot of links, and they link to all sorts of places across the web. That's kind of the perfect example of what a link network is supposed to look like. It's all about the semantic meaning, the words in the anchor text.
There it is.
The meaning of the pages, the relationship between them. And, authority will vary, but the real meaning of authority when it comes to links is this a very trusted source on this topic? Which you can be an expert at, say, baking. That's not going to be the highest DA website on the web, but a good baking website will be seen as very authoritative in that space,
in that niche.
So those links matter.
Absolutely. Wikipedia also has a particular value. Yeah, you're right, not to the news editors, but they do have a value because it's a trusted source by Google. It actually is a definition of things, of knowledge, and Google is absolutely processing in the space of understanding the world of things and how things relate to each other. So the Wikipedia glossary of sorts is a valuable link to have coming into a particular site. It's very coveted, and you're not really going to be able to get that often. But it does give us a kind of a map of subject matter of which Google's been learning from for the last 15 years. So again, semantic relevancy to different subjects. That's kind of a backdrop to everything that we're talking about here. Now we're not going to go back to yesteryear or any of the black hat shenanigans. Yeah, I said that word because I'm old. That led to major algorithm changes, but there are things that we've come from. We do want to at least reference that because what you're doing now is a direct relationship to what was done then, right?
My entire tenure at Page One Power, we've been chased by, link building is dead. Does link building still work? Do links still matter? I feel like we used to have when we still had an office. We're all remote now, but I feel like when we had an office, we might have had a poster on the wall with that infamous Matt Cutts quote about blog link building, stick a fork in it, blog links are dead. It's taken a little bit out of context, but that's just never been true because links are central to the architecture of the web. And frankly, back when the web was new and there were dozens of search engines, you had your Ask Jeeves and your Alta Vista and all that. What helped Google stand out as a search engine before it was a household name and it was in the dictionary was the fact that it used backlinks in its analysis and appraisal of websites and results to build its SERP. So links have always been important, but that kind of naturally would lead people to do sort of disingenuous things to get links quantitatively without the meaningful semantic relationship or relevance between pages. So as a link builder, I've always had to fight that perception, both from clients who aren't really sure, is this something to invest in? Is this legit? But also from all the websites who are used to, trashy content and kind of selfish asks from link builders going, hey, I need this link from you. I don't really have anything to offer. It doesn't really contribute to what your mission is or what your audience is looking for. But links matter. Give me my links.
Right. It was much more transactional. And to use your analogy, I don't know which actual analogy route I want to go down. I'll pick the voting. It's like stuffing the ballot, right? Is that you're devaluing the votes collectively. And that's what Google got away from. It actually cleaned everybody's clock that was doing that with that type of goal of just quantity as opposed to quality. And now we're in a fast forward, and there is a lot of evolution along the way. And I don't want to absolutely marginalize that. But we're at a place now where the concept has shifted, is that you're not building links. You cannot manipulate nearly as much as what we had done in the past. This is link earning. You have to be voted on, and the content and the relationship that you have has to be so aligned with who's actually going to be providing you that link, right?
Exactly. The vernacular has gotten kind of polluted. So we still call it link building, but if I was going to get really specific about it, I would say the content earn links. And link building is really just how we promote that content to relevant audiences who can then link to it. Because the web's too big and noisy and crowded for even the best content to just be instantly discovered by the right people. It still takes promotion. And back to what you were saying about PR, The R stands for relations. So the link building, it's not just soliciting the links, it's building relationships, going and saying, hey, I understand your audience. I understand what your site is about. This contributes to that. Here you go. And then the link is a side effect of you doing that actual relationship building exercise of spreading knowledge and promoting content that actually has value.
And there's the big asterisk. Yeah. What that actually has value. And there's still spam out there. There's still garbage out there.
Absolutely.
And we see it, whether we're marketers or not. There's so much clickbait out there. There's so much noise that whenever you do see true authoritative sites, all right, there's such a trust value. And we've seen even last year, there was a huge algorithm change on trust value of news websites, May 4th to be exact. And there was a lot of sites that got dropped because they were clickbait. They didn't have the authoritative articles and editors. They were basically just aggregation platforms that really didn't have the deep factors to be trusted. So there's a lot that could be discussed there. But let's pivot over to why things are so challenging right now. Is it challenging, I got to ask, to earn links right now?
Absolutely. It's always been challenging. And the bigger the web gets and the more content that you have to compete with out there, that's only going to make it more challenging. But to your point about some sites getting, I don't like to say penalized because the algorithm is what it is, but some sites losing visibility.
Yep.
Well, were you serving your audience or were you just trying to build an audience to exploit? You know, it kind of goes both ways. If you have a genuine audience that's engaged, that's where authority comes from. That's what makes content worth sharing. If you're doing clickbait and just kind of spammy stuff to try to get what looks like clicks so that you make more off ads, that's kind of like the parallel to black hat link building. You're not actually sharing anything of value. You're not serving real people. You're just sort of exploiting the masses that make up, activity on the internet.
It really went hand in hand. It's almost like the correlation of how many ads and what it was seeing visibly on the user experience directly applied to, all right, you're not really trying to provide good information. You're surrounding the user with so many additional distractions that, we don't value that anymore. So that said, what do links really represent to today's Google algorithm? And I know you can't speak to the algorithm. No, nobody bloody well cares, right?
Black box, yeah.
But I mean, what do you see as a factor of into the SEO recipe?
So we don't know the algorithm itself. It's shrouded in Google's proprietary behind the curtain secrecy, but Google has been very transparent, even outspoken about the importance of EAT. Expertise, authority, trust. Well, they say authoritativeness and trustworthiness, but
same thing.
Expertise, authority, trust.
Yep.
And that is what links kind of represent. They represent all three. If someone or an entity, a website is an expert or has access to experts and does original research, you want to link to that. If someone is an authority in their space, you're going to want to quote them. You're going to want to link to them. And you're probably not going to link to a website or a page that you don't trust. So links exemplify trustworthiness because when you have links, particularly links that are relevant and meaningfully reflect the content that is being shared on the site that's producing the link, you are very trustworthy based on those signals. And cumulatively, it's not the only way to build EAT, but it's kind of hard to build EAT without links.
There you go. And again, EAT and SEO, they're somewhat interchangeable right now. Is that you must define your expertise in the marketplace, and on top of that, how Google trusts you is actually a representative in the knowledge graph and knowledge panels as well. The more you actually have citable information, the more you have relevant information to your industry, you start earning a kind of a mirror back to yourself with different feature snippets and knowledge panel factors. So it's a sounding board of if you constitute that level of credibility, Google's actually paying attention, even demonstrating it on the real estate of the SERP to begin with, right?
Absolutely. I love the way that you express that, because I think the T stands for trustworthiness, because there's this prolific tendency, not just in SEO, but I think among everyone who talks about tech, to really anthropomorphize Google as though Google is the entity making choices. But I think links really speak to the fact that Google is really holding a mirror up to the web, a little bit of a funhouse mirror. It's distorting it a little bit, but it's still just a mirror. So links are the expression of trust that Google is looking for to go, oh, people seem to trust this website, therefore it probably deserves to appear higher in the SERPs. There's other ranking factors, but links are a really powerful one for demonstrating to Google that you are worthy of trust. You have earned trust from across the web. And that, combined with different things, is what's ultimately going to influence if Google puts you in, the knowledge panel, or how you kind of appear with all the different SERP features that are now present,
right,
or, still evolving. But it's not Google making a choice. It's more Google algorithmically trying to go, what's already happening? Mm-hmm. And it quantifies that with a SERP.
It does, and all industries are different, and all niches are different. So it's paying attention to validation in so many different niche industries. Not that they actually pay attention to the industry itself, but they do see the relevant arguments as it applies to different sites in those industries. So anyway, point being, I think we made the case that this is very, very important stuff, and you have to have that as part of your bandolier of tactics from a digital marketing standpoint and a specifically an SEO standpoint. You've got to embrace this, and you have to have a discipline to do this. So let's pivot over to the case at hand. We're actually really going to be talking about the art of solicitation. How do we create the relationships? And we had to set this baseline, but let's dig into this, is that the art of acquiring inbound links to your site is literally building a relationship, and you actually have a presentation of links and content are actually a modern romance, and that's really a great way to create the context there, because long dead is the bulk pitch submissions to thousands of websites with variable fields in the email to just be able to shake whatever you can out of the tree. Website owners and publishers of content online are numb to those emails and regularly ignore these things as like clumsy requests. And we all see it. Anybody that's in the space of content publishing, get that solicitation. It's still out there. But they're savvy to all this. There's no value in those pitches. Do websites hold their value in a much higher regard now than maybe even 3 years ago?
I think a lot of it comes down to time. I think there's so many people out there, and awareness has grown that it's a numbers game to everyone to spam inboxes with solicitations and to find as many websites as possible. And to really, I think a lot of people, their time is limited and their time has more demands than ever. The same way a few generations ago, you had 3 channels and you could watch the news 3 times a day on one of those 3 channels.
Right.
Now there's a million streaming services and who knows how many cable and satellite channels. The same thing is happening with the web, with just the players and the number of people active and trying to kind of get theirs with ads or views or clicks or links for that matter. So yeah, I think to an extent, sites are having to take themselves a little bit more seriously, just as a function of realizing, man, there are so many parasites trying to feed on my time. I have to protect it.
You're absolutely right. That type of solicitation is coined as a deceptive process, for lack of a better description. The effort to find receptive publishers is kind of an art form into itself. Very similar to what we're talking about, public relations. You have to have that network. You also have to have knowledge of the industry. Like I said, everybody's numb and considered spam whenever you see this type of pitch. You have to be able to set yourself apart from the known kind of overused tactics. Before we get into the pitch, however, how do you find the opportunities? Can you share some unique examples of targeting? Not giving away the sauce here, but it can't just be broken link pursuits. Sure. I mean, there's got to be something much more valuable in the offering, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's merits to, site finding tactics like looking for broken links or unlinked mentions is a really powerful one, because if someone's already mentioned you or they're talking about your niche, it's not a huge ask to say, hey, you already mentioned it. Would you link to it in case people want to know more, just to kind of validate the conversation. But what we spend a lot of time doing, it's really audience based. Just like the way that we come up with content ideas is built around what do people need, what lived experiences are they having that might compel them to search for, whatever solution they're seeking.
Yeah.
Well, where else are those people gathering? What communities exist online where people are going, commiserating or sharing resources or talking or whatever? And I don't just mean social media.
Sure.
I mean actual, industry specific, vertical specific websites, like a pet enthusiast, or even more specific than that, a dog enthusiast, dog breeders. The web is a beautiful place in that sense, because whatever your community, whoever your people are, they're out there, plural. There's these large groups. So our site finding tends to be based on what groups can we associate with this client or this website or this industry. Who are these people? What experiences are they having? What values and fears do they have? Based on that kind of demographic classification, what sites are serving those same needs? It's just a simple Venn diagram. Where's the overlap? And so we look for sites that exist in that overlap and then go, okay, here are some resources that fit the existing community that you've built around yourself. You're already having these conversations. People are looking for this and that. This belongs in the conversation. We're not solving huge problems. We don't have the solutions to all the world's problems, but we're going, hey, this might help.
Right.
And when you see the people and you see the engagement in the conversations that they're having, it's fairly easy to tell, oh, this will contribute to that conversation, or nope, this is a dead end. It's not even worth asking. It's not worth wasting their time. I don't have an asset for this. I'll come back later.
Well, you're touching on two important things here. You are doing reconnaissance. As you're searching for these niche industries, these particular water cooler moments that are out there, there's a level of attenuation that's only developed by so much knowledge of the web, and also so much knowledge of the client's unique industry. And you have to be able to actually sift through what's garbage, because we all know it, not only from just our native new media audience space, but also as marketers, knowing that's not useful. It's almost like you're panning for gold, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a unique community right here, right? But on the other side, there's also what you're providing for information. You have to be publishing link-worthy content, and finding that information is a whole other show unto itself as well. It can't be tepid. You can't proffer up some sort of regurgitation of another article that are 10 steps to do this that are on 15 other websites, right?
Well, that's kind of the aspiration, I think. Not just with linkable content, but even if you're trying to do keyword optimized content.
Sure.
If something is widely searched, that probably means there's a lot of content at least attempting to address that topic. So what we try to do, especially with linkable content, is we go, okay, what are these conversations? What's being discussed? So it's already not going to be completely original that we're contributing to an ongoing conversation. But because we can see an existing conversation, we can go, okay, this comes up a lot. How do we bring something new to this topic? Right. Or more importantly, how do we connect this topic to our client in a unique way? So, a lot of topics get written about a lot, and a lot of things get kind of regurgitated. So our effort is always to say, is there something that hasn't been said yet? Or if this is being regurgitated over and over, why do people keep coming back to it? I think it always comes back to that social intelligence.
Right.
Why are people still writing about this? If the definitive version of a topic had been written, would that be the end of it? Well, clearly not. So what else can we actually contribute that's novel and helpful and not just repetitive?
And that means that you have to know your client's industry pretty much more than them to understand the gaps of information that are actually out there, and find those opportunities, right?
Yeah, it's maybe not better than them, but certainly different from them, because I think the average client, we talk about the marketing funnel a lot, and I think the average client is most preoccupied with the bottom of the funnel because that's where money changes hands, right? That's where they can have a transactional relationship with clients. We tend to look toward the top of the funnel. So it's the same journey, it's the same trajectory that leads to that conversion that clients really care about, but we're going, what got them there?
Yep.
What led them to search for this? So when we go to the top of the funnel, we have much broader conversations that reaches much broader audiences. And this is kind of the thing we have to remind everyone. The content you create to earn links is not necessarily content that's going to directly facilitate conversion.
There you go.
Or at least not in a continuous flow. But it does fit as part of that larger journey that people have to discover the solutions you represent, learn about your brand, and then finally make a converting decision. We take that broader perspective than our clients, certainly.
We can't state that enough. It sounds like it's overused, but the buyer's journey is that stratification of content that reaches the decision process. Higher up in the funnel, consideration, decision-making content all have to be broken out and have their own tactics and delivery tactics as well, because the potential publishers of an awareness piece of content may not actually be the same potential publishers of that decision-making content, right?
100%. And this really isn't even a novel concept.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is why we like to use analogies, certainly why I like to use analogies in SEO, because what we're talking about it's not so esoteric from what's been going on forever. And I think a classic example would be Super Bowl ads. Like, I don't know that purchases of Coca-Cola or pickup trucks spikes on Super Bowl Sunday or the week thereafter, but they're still pouring millions of dollars into these ads because they want to be front of mind, or at least somewhere in people's memories, so that when they are ready to select a soft drink or purchase a vehicle, they have these feelings and associations and past positive experiences that are going to lead them. And that's then when conversion happens, which could be weeks, months, or years later. So the content we're creating for link acquisition, it's not advertising in the same way, but we are trying to influence people in the same way by just having positive experiences of being entertained, learning something, finding answers, discovering your brand in a non-commercial context.
There you go. Like
in those communities where they already like to spend time and consume content. That's sort of the essence of linkable content, is not commercial, not driving conversion, but creating useful, positive experiences for people.
I would agree with you completely. However, I was trying to find where I buy my puppy baby monkey. You don't remember that? Puppy baby monkey? All right. I mean, he went Super Bowl, so I had to.
That's a deep cut, man.
It was a deep cut. All right. Fine. All right. So you're absolutely right. And it's the brand alignment. I always harken back to whenever we're talking about brands. I think Columbia Jackets actually rolled out an app like 10 years ago that had literally nothing to do with their their outerwear whatsoever. It was a knot tying app. And it was just about connecting to that user that was in the field, exactly where they were, and literally no association to buy a product here. Maybe it was way inside the app, but it was really utilitarian, useful information that would absolutely stick in someone's mind.
Right.
After they're actually off the mountain and then they're in the store and Columbia Jackets right there. Well, they actually helped me out. They taught me how to do a bowline, right? So
that's a perfect example because it's audience focused.
Right.
It's not how are we going to sell more jackets? I know by tying knots, like that logic doesn't hold up, but we know that we're selling to an outdoors audience, mountain climbers and boaters and all these things. Knots, that's a skill that's relevant to our audience. At Page One, I didn't coin the phrase, but I like to call that strategy, if you give a mouse a cookie, because they're going to want a glass of milk. If I'm a cookie factory, I'm not in the business I'm not a dairy, right? I'm not making milk, but I know if I talk about milk in association with my cookie products, that association makes sense and it serves my audience.
Yep.
And whatever your industry, you can find those associations, whether it's outdoor gear and knot tying, or I don't know, sustainability and solar panels.
Absolutely. All right. So again, that's a whole nother show of just content relationships and buyer's journey, as well as utilitarian content as opposed to transactional content. Let's go into the romance. This is why we're here. We're wanting to talk about how you actually pitch. So first and foremost, link building is a lot like online dating. So take me there. You're connecting to real people. You're offering something of value, right? And you're making a memorable experience. So give me an idea here of how do we go about that particular journey?
Yeah. So I think the contrast would be, not that many generations ago, your most likely romantic partners are someone that you met in high school, in some small community high school. And now it's the entire web, potentially people around the world, depending on how big your connection square is on the app.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you stand out to the people that you might be compatible with? And how do you reach out to the people that you might be compatible with? This is why I put so much emphasis on social intelligence in link building and outreach and content creation. As a organization, you want to know your audience. With online dating, I think you kind of have to know yourself, and you have to know what your value is. There's always a thread on Reddit and certain social sites that are like, guys, what are you tired of seeing in women's profiles? And then you go to the equal side, women, what are you tired of seeing on guys' profiles on these dating sites? And very consistently, people will essentially say, I'm tired of people having a laundry list of things I have to be in order to be worth their time or to earn their swipe or for them to respond to a message. I want to get to know them before I try to reach out to them. And that is really the essence of link building. You can't reach out like, in the early Black Hat days and go, hey, links are important. I need a link to me. That's too aggressive and it offers nothing.
Sure.
So what you actually have to do is go, this is what we're about. This is content that's of value. This is entertaining. This is informational. This is useful. This is insightful. I want to share this with you. And that gives the sites that you outreach, much like partners, prospective partners looking at your profile, the opportunity to, I see this place of overlap. I see common ground. I'm intrigued. I want to learn more. Swipe right. Or with a website, yeah, I'll link to that. That resonates with me. My audience cares about that. I accept your pitch.
But a swipe is uniquely different than a actual link because, in a manner of speaking, is that there's a wholesale investment of I'm giving you my vote of trust publicly, as opposed to this might be interesting. So there's the relationship, the pitch, and you have to be offering something unique to that audience. You have to know your audience, but everybody finds, like you said in your deck, everybody finds a reason not to connect. Right.
Yeah. And this is, I think, the frustrating part of online dating, that it's such a numbers game, even though ostensibly and all their ad campaigns say this is a place where people come to connect. In reality, it's where people go to filter down the sheer mass of people that they might be compatible with. So they're looking for any excuse to swipe left and go, nope, too short, too tall, too whatever, not enough, whatever. So a big part of this is not coming at sites that you're hoping to earn links from with demand or an aggressive ask, but instead lead with, I have something of value. You haven't seen this before. This isn't already on your site, but I know this matters. And people have a fairly good nose for these things. When you get an email that's just, hey, I would like to connect, I need something from you. I feel like you could be a customer.
Right.
That goes straight to the spam bin. I think even inboxes now have filters for that kind of thing. So we have fairly finely tuned senses for that kind of thing. That's just a time waster. And so obviously site owners and webmasters, they have that same sense that's been developed over the years. So when you open with, here's something valuable for you, this is free. Like I'm not looking for financial exchange. I'm not making a demand, but I'm trying to let you see that this has value. Both the asset has to live up to that, but the messaging when you share that asset has to speak in that way. Because if you're aggressive and demanding, that's an excuse not to connect. That's a really easy way for them to go, no, this is a time waster.
Yep.
Block email address, throw it into the trash,
Red
whatever.
flag. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so many trigger points in there. You touched on it, but it's got to be pulled back around and discussed here is that you're making a reference that, hey, this is not on your website. Now, hold on a second here. You've got to actually know what's being presented on the target site in question. Know your client's audience know your client's topic matter enough to be able to understand gap analysis, but you also have to be able to have the time to peruse the information and know what's missing in that combination of topics. That takes time, and that has to be part of the pursuit and the reconnaissance before any of this gets started, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like, have you ever gone to a traffic light party where green means I'm single and ready to mingle, yellow means I'm just kind of feeling things out, and red means I'm in a committed relationship? That's a place where everyone can come together. But I think there's a reason why there's singles only nights and singles bars and singles events, because what are you doing if you go somewhere and you're trying to start a relationship, a romantic relationship,
right,
with someone who's already in a committed relationship?
Right.
That's a bad look.
Yeah,
that's a non-starter. So by that same token, if you really know your audience that you're going to outreach to try to build links, you got to know, do you already have something like this? Do you already have this exact thing?
Yep.
Do you have a problem with the client that, this asset lives on? You really have to do that research before you can start making value propositions, because even if it's the best content in the world, if it's not going to be the right fit, it doesn't matter how good your pitch is.
You come across as tone deaf.
Yeah.
You have to understand. You have to understand the destination. You have to understand what's strong in this community, what's strong in a presence of content and subject matter on these sites. And there's a good deal of legwork right there to do that. Let's say you have the content, you know where the gaps are, you know what the opportunity is. Now let's talk about the communication side of things. There are preferred levels of communication, and we always focus on the email solicitation as a delivery mechanism. Do you guys do other ways of communicating to these target recipients of content?
I'm glad I made it this far into the show without saying it depends.
Oh, God.
But I know that's the cop-out answer, but
Yep.
I can just tell you what it depends on, because when we're looking at these sites, we're putting in the time to know who's the audience, what do they want, what do they already have. And while we're doing all that kind of analytics on the site, we're also going, who do I need to talk to make this pitch? Who's the appropriate person, the webmaster, a contributor, an author? Like, who do I talk to?
Right.
And if you can find that person, if they're in the business of taking solicitations, or they're in the business of managing content creation for a site,
Right.
they'll have a preferred method of communication. Often that's email, because I think that's really easy to manage and filter.
Right.
Some people say, reach out to me on Instagram. Here's my Twitter handle. Let's have a phone call. Like we have actually gotten on the phone with people before and just said, hey, this is where I'm coming from.
Yep.
Does this work for you? Are you interested? Whatever it takes. But again, it's about knowing your audience and reaching out to them on their terms in the way that they prefer. And sometimes that's for their convenience of being able to ignore you if they prefer.
Absolutely.
But not giving them that opportunity is not a really great icebreaker.
But if you're trying to be authentic, right? We're in a new era of Zoom sessions and communication. It could very well be a great additional opportunity to say, hey, I've got this great idea. Instead of actually packing it inside of an email, can I talk to you? Can I actually just not only pitch our client, but pitch why we value your destination and what it means to our client, and see whether or not there's a good fit there. Have you seen that come to fruition here lately?
It's not that common. And again, I think that comes to the time thing. If it's as simple as me sharing a link and saying, hey, there's resources on this page that I think your audience would appreciate, or your website would benefit from sharing.
Right.
It's fairly easy for someone to click the link, whatever digital medium you're using to share that link, and make a decision on the merits of the content. So most people aren't interested in going through a Zoom call or even a phone call in most cases.
Right.
If what you're really doing is providing an online asset that they can just click a link and follow.
Right.
So most of our strategy and most of our endeavors to be as sincere and transparent as possible, it usually happens in a written context where we're just going, hey, this is what I've got. This is why I think it's a good fit. And being concise and not necessarily demanding follow-up or giving them a lot of hoops to jump through.
Sure.
basically being as respectful and conscientious of their time as possible generally yields the best results in terms of them going, hey, you're not asking for a lot. You're not wasting my time. You're not spamming me. I'll take a look and I'll judge it on its own merits. And I'll decide for myself if what you're saying holds up or not.
You say in your deck, being sincere and offering authentic value to them is very important. Don't be irrelevant, but attach your core unique selling proposition in a unique and thoughtful way. That's a powerful sentence right there.
Yeah.
And you got to take it apart, is that offering authentic value via email. I mean, you got to get eyes on the email to begin with. Just the crafting of the email has to be subject to a good deal of testing as well, making sure that you can open with authentic, non-spam formatting to be able to just get attention of somebody, right?
I think Jim Henson said, simple is good.
Yeah.
That's a great aphorism to live by. Simplicity is effective. And the simplest email is going to lead them to the actual substance of the ask, which is, what are you linking to? What's in the link? And it's really important that whatever your outreach, whatever that message is, matches the value proposition of the asset that you're trying to get a link to. So it's being sincere and having authentic value. It's both, but the real value is in the asset that you're asking for a link to.
Roger that.
And that's where I say, attach your USP in a unique and thoughtful way. It's really easy to come up with a compelling page title or a compelling topic. And, I'm talking about knowing your audience and what's the overlap between like a client or a business and these other online groups. It's not that hard to come up with ideas, but it is a little bit harder to follow through in the execution and actually deliver useful content that's unique and helpful. And I said before also, the content you're building links to isn't your converting content. It's not necessarily a product page.
Yep.
For the value of the links that asset earns to be felt by your actual performing pages, you need internal links. So you are going to have to mention what you hung your shingle for. You are going to have to link to your product page or your contact us page or whatever it is that you're trying to
or
rank.
even the next step in the journey as well.
Yeah.
That it may very well be so awareness driven that the only links that are on that destination are the next step, not the transaction step, right?
Exactly. And you still have to couch that in a way that's appropriate to the topic. You can't bait and switch someone with, hey, I've got all these helpful resources for reducing your student debt. And then the actual article that you're sharing is, click here to learn more, buy my stuff, use my service. So you've got great outreach. You've intrigued someone enough with an offer of genuine value. You have a sincere, brief outreach. If they click on the link and they go, oh, you're just trying to sell something, that's completely undermined all the work you've done. The site finding, the outreach, crafting your message, setting up the asset. So the sincere value has to flow through the entire linkable asset that you're trying to share out there.
Fantastic. I'll pull the car over for a minute and just talk about that, is that you can actually, you as a consulting company can manage and control the pitch, the content, the relationship. But if you can't control and actually clean through any of the inconsistencies of authentic offering on the site itself, that's terrible brand, and it can destroy the entire endeavor, like you said. I mean, you've got to be inheriting a lot of potential garbage whenever sites come in, of squeeze pages and these different techniques that are off-putting. Yeah, they work, but if you're trying to land with authenticity and earning trust, the site itself, not only the asset, has to be completely trustworthy, right?
Yeah. We can't make up for a bad product or a bad brand name. That would be disingenuous, Yep. It's your job. If you want to rank and you want to invest in SEO, it's really incumbent on you to have a value proposition, to have something that people do actually want. If people aren't searching for what you have, I don't know why you'd even invest in SEO. The S stands for search. If they're not searching, that's not the medium where they're going to find you. They're not looking.
Right.
But yeah, your brand name, your brand equity matters. We actually had a client who was ranking really well for, I don't want to give up the whole name, but for a very negative search term that had to do with some government intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And they were coming to us going, hey, we need to fix this. And we're kind of going, you did this to yourself before you came to us and invested in SEO. We can't bury this. This is important information for people interested in your brand or who would consider giving you money. So you have to fix this. We can't just, it's not politics. We're just going to create a distraction. You actually have to repair your public image.
And that can't be well received. They have to know that they have to be taking care of their own brand. If they're not, they're going to be learning that very, very soon, because the attention span of the digital savvy consumer is directly affected by brand authenticity and trust. And kind of the last stage in this particular discussion here is the expertise, authority, and trust factor. When it gets down to link earning, you talk about going out to eat, right, as a euphemism, as part of this romance. Instead of demonstrating expertise by talking about yourself, showcasing the relevance to their values and offering that up as a relationship builder, because all of a sudden now you're coming into that trust circle, right? And you know their value, you know what they're trying to share to their client, and you're also showing respect to what they have done up to now, right?
If I were to summarize it in one word, it would be listen. I think it's probably a trope at this point in romantic comedies that they go out on a bad date and it's some self-absorbed person who's only talking about themselves. They're not engaging. They think they're entitled to attention. They think they're entitled to a romantic connection. That is fairly common to how people go about link building. Back to the beginning, my site exists. Links are a ranking factor. Link to me. I want it. Look, I even created a blog. It's not a very good blog. It's only interesting to me because I wrote it about myself. Link to it. That's a bad opener. That's a bad first date. That's a bad outreach message.
You're wearing a velour suit and a singles bar, right?
Yeah, just squeaking as you come in. Yeah, that's not how you win friends and influence people. So listen, what does your audience need? What are your consumers' pain points?
Right.
No. Where else are they talking? It's all about listening.
Your content needs to be linking to external sources and being and acknowledge the experts in your industry. It can't be self-facing. It can't just be self-promoting. It has to have an environment to be accepted into, and you've got to be able to tip your hat to other players that are in your marketplace. And sometimes clients are gun shy of that. They don't want to be able to shine a light someplace else. And my God, just understanding the digital weight that brings, that you're actually acknowledging that. I mean, right there is a linkable asset. Just having a blog post that actually showcases the top 10 individuals in your industry, that's a magnet, right?
That's incredibly valuable from an SEO standpoint. That goes directly to EAT. But if you think about going out on a date, is there a huge red flag? You take someone out to dinner and then you berate the wait staff all night because you think they're flirting with your date.
Right.
That's going to send some really toxic signals to the person. No, acknowledge other people, acknowledge the environment that you're in. It's okay to talk to other people and to acknowledge the value that other entities bring to any place, any audience, and any experience. From a webmaster or a site owner standpoint, I've never really understood that paranoid mentality that traffic is zero sum. And if they're not staying on your website, they're going to go somewhere else and they're never going to come back. Like everyone that I know has about 500,000 tabs open on their browser at any given day. It is possible to look at 2 websites at once. It is possible to click a link, look at an asset, look at a resource, see the source of a quote, whatever, and still have that other page open. It's also possible to toggle backward, and after you've looked at something, go back to the page you were on before.
Right.
But from a social standpoint, from a web standpoint, from a linking standpoint, you can't pretend you're in a vacuum. You can't build a moat around your website or around your converting page and expect that to work. It's called web for a reason. It's a bunch of connected threads that combine into a greater whole. Acknowledge that, leverage that, link to experts, link to people you want to be associated with. Ultimately, that's what you're asking for when you're asking for links. So practice what you preach.
Fantastic. One last point here as it applies to the relationship. And again, any one of these topics could be spin-off series into itself. And I appreciate your focus on what you're delivering here. I really do think this is great for our listeners. The dating game that you're referencing is always changing, and so is content. So is information in the particular niche or the news space or the subject matter. It very well may not win the day the first time you're pitching, but if you come back around to those same sources, those same recipients, and say, you know what, I've noticed this. We have actually adjusted this particular content because of this trending subject matter or a particular insight. That unlocks a lot of value both on your end as well as the client's end as well as the recipient's end of the pitch, right?
Absolutely. People change, you change, your interests change, the environment changes, social expectations change. So why wouldn't you update your content? Why wouldn't you update your strategy? It's if I walked into my first date in a bell-bottom leisure suit, smoking a cigarette, not only am I going to get turfed really quickly because you can't smoke indoors anymore, but they're going to go, what time machine did you step out of? I went from, the height of 70s fashion to red flag, dates over early.
Hey, it's making a comeback. It's making a comeback. Come on.
These things come in cycles, sure, but the point is that the wheel never stops turning, right? And even when it's going to come back around, you have to understand the environment that you're in. So not only do you have to learn the current best practices and update your strategy and update your messaging and your communication, you also have to be mindful of how things are changing, what came before and what seems to be on the horizon. Because if you're not moving, then you're stuck. And that's not going to work in your romantic life.
No.
Whether you're married or dating, it's certainly not going to work in your marketing strategy, and it has never worked in SEO.
Absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine that if you're actually bringing new, updated content to one of your pitches that may have failed, you're getting another chance to say, hey, we're really paying attention to you and what you're talking about. This may be even more valuable to you. So it's not stale content. So you've broken that stigma as well. So it's not one shot and trying to get it in the hands of all the potential publishers. There's a relationship, like you're saying, but there's also, you got to build those trusts. And as you can ferry that information over with regularity, that gets you into that coveted inner circle of trust, right?
This is where I think link building is maybe easier than dating in some ways, because as far as I know, if someone swipes left on you and kind of rejects you on an app, that might be the end of the story for you. But rejection in outreach and link building and trying to facilitate connections with other websites, rejection can be a learning opportunity. Rejection can be an opportunity for you to self-analyze and, oh yeah, this is really outdated. These figures don't hold up anymore. The data has changed, or the meaning of these words has changed. The connotations have changed, or people's interest in this topic has changed. Look at Google Trends.
Yeah.
That's the Swiss Alps, right? It's going up and down all the time. Things are moving. So
look at People Also Ask. There's such an intuitive response that Google's actually providing us that can actually, and we actually believe over here that it's not just crowdsourcing. There's some inference that Google's actually creating in these People Also Asks.
100%.
Understanding that this may be a logical next step of information that people are going to want to go to. So researching that and be able to create content that is even more predictive in nature. It may not be what's trending right now, but the logical next step of information that they're going to be pursuing is this document. So paying attention and being able to be even more relevant to these recipients, these publishers. Can't state it enough how valuable that could be. So the whole goal is to make sure that we can date and have a romance and have a relationship and literally have a marriage. This is not just dating. It's not speed dating.
Right.
This is finding your partner and partners out there to be able to convey information regularly. Once you build that trust up, now you've got a flow of good information that continually reinforce your authority, the trust in the organization as it applies to that niche. So there's the ecosystem, folks. folks, is that you have to take this incredibly seriously, that through these stages, there's so many barriers. If you just try to bulk submit to any, through any of these platforms, it's the exact wrong way to do this. You have to look at this as if you're dating, as if you're going to be judged. You got to put your best suit on and make sure that you listen to them, as opposed to trying to pimp your wares.
I think maybe back in the very beginning, it was a numbers game, but today it's not quantity, it's quality. Absolutely. It's about the meaningfulness of the connections.
Very good, very good. Well, we certainly appreciate the deck and the presentation and the insight that you provide, Norm. Finishing up this discussion, can you tell us what bugs you about your industry right now?
I think it's similar to the points that we just touched on, actually. And it's not even just now. I think it's always been a sticking point with SEO, that people are impatient. They want results just faster than is realistic or even beneficial to them. And there's a sense of entitlement, as in kind of what we were just talking about at that last point. Right. What used to work isn't working as well anymore. Why not? Because I succeeded and was in the top spot once, I'm entitled to have that top spot forever. No, you have to run to stay in place in SEO. That's awesome. You have to better yourself to remain good enough, no matter, I think in life, maybe you're only as good as your last gig, but in search, your last gig isn't good enough. You have to remain the best consistently. And in terms of impatience, what I always tell people is, they want to invest in SEO and they immediately get the top spot. They get the traffic. They start making money off of it. Mm-hmm. And what I always say is, if you can get the top spot overnight, so can your competition. Don't think you're investing in something that you can lose immediately. You got to invest to play the long game for sustained success that actually delivers ROI.
Yeah. It's not owned, it's earned, and you have to keep on earning it. Well said. Well, conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
I'm really geeking out over all the AI and automation systems that are happening, both like with what Google's doing with MUM and how it's really overhauling its multimedia search. It's not just text on web pages with MUM. It's the images themselves and the automated, machine understanding of what images are and what's happening in a video or in audio and translating between languages. Yep. But also on the content creation side, it's sort of Google, probably because they're Google, has the most cutting edge version of this, but there's other resources that allow us to understand language in different ways and take data from across many different web pages and go, okay, kind of like what I was talking about before. Listening manually is very time intensive. Listening with the assistance of an AI or a machine learning system, it allows you to scale how you devote your attention to different audiences, websites, social places where people are communicating. So we can get incredible insights into what people are talking about in real time, what people care about, and what emotions underlie that: fears, hopes, expectations, irritations. And that all means, in theory, better content. I'm sure we're going to get plenty of spam artists who use it to quantify their content.
Sure.
But I do think it's an incredible opportunity for higher quality search results and higher quality content populating those SERPs.
Listening at scale, and we still have to continually reinforce the anti-bias concepts, because there's a lot of colloquialisms, there's a lot of vernacular that can't be heard yet, and we have to insist upon that as we're relying on AI to be able to ferry that information to us. So we have to keep it without confirmation bias, right?
Yeah. Well, even simpler than that, I don't know a lot of AIs that are good at recognizing puns or sarcasm. And frankly, even in person with all the social cues and body language, people aren't always good at recognizing puns and sarcasm. So there's still mountains to climb, but there are opportunities even right now to take advantage of how machines distill the messages that we're trying to comprehend as humans.
Very good. Well, that's a whole other subject right there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, final thoughts, anything you want to tell our audience as just some final thoughts about the inbound marketing, inbound relationship process?
It takes patience, commitment, and repetition. Page One Power is just one of many agencies that are happy to help you with that. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to do on your own. It doesn't scale well, but it is worth investing in. And there is no, skip to the end cheat code. There is no Konami code you can enter to win. You do actually have to do the work, earn the links, earn the EAT signals, and demonstrate your value to rank. And then you have to keep doing it if you want to remain visible in search. So we know it's a slog, but we're here to be in that slog with you.
And everybody has to mature and understand that there's no shortcuts to this. There's no Cliff Note piece of content that you got to put out there. I'm just going to use all the analogies. Very good, sir. I appreciate the time and the investment of these topics and how we can relay it to our audience. We are always wanting to communicate this side of the equation. We talk technical SEO all the time. We talk a number of different more malleable sides of the equation. This one has to be stoked correctly, and it does have to have patience. You can't fast track this, and you have to have the discipline as a client as well as the agency in place to be able to understand there's not a shortcut here. It's a long-term investment, but it's actually going to be earning trust, not buying it at all. So I greatly appreciate the time today, sir.
I'm really glad you brought me on. This has been a fun conversation.
Fantastic. Well, we want to make sure that we track you down on LinkedIn, Norm Vogeli, Norm-Vogeli. Just search Vogeli. You'll find him over there. Yeah. I'd take you over to the Twitter side of things, but you haven't tweeted for a while.
I'm more of a lurker than a tweeter. If you want to know what I have to say, just go to pageonepower.com. Check out the Linkarati blog. I tend to be candid.
Fantastic. Check out the blogs over at Page One Power. We certainly want to recommend that our audience goes over to edgeofthewebradio.com/Page One Power, and you can actually sign up for a 30-minute free consultation with Page One, and hopefully we'll get Norm on the phone with you and talk through some of the key strategies. Thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. As we go, we certainly want to come back around and talk to you guys more throughout the year.
That would be fantastic, and I appreciate what you're doing with this show and with your company. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
You got it, man. All right. Follow Norm over at, lurk Norm over at pageonepower.com and check out his blogs over there. Follow us on Twitter at Edge Web Radio. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Edge of the Web Radio on YouTube. And if you're feeling up to it today, drop us a quick review on iTunes. You can actually use ratethispodcast.com/edge. Thanks to our sponsor for this show, Page One Power. Make sure you check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Check out the next shows coming up. Marie Haynes, Olga Zarzechna, as well as Kim Schmoyer. From all of us over at Site Strategics and Edge, be safe, be well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.